My name is Rachel. I'm 39, married to Mark, who works long hours so I can keep our home upright. The bills paid, the doctor's appointments scheduled, the birthday cards filed in my head like little promises I must keep. We lived like caretakers of the same house rather than partners. Polite, steady, the easy rhythms of two people who had learned to survive on small kindnesses and dwindling conversation. Ethan was 26, the son of an old friend helping us renovate the garage. He arrived each morning with a quiet, efficient presence, calloused hands, a quick, apologetic smile, and a willingness to take on the heavy, thankless tasks no one else wanted. At first, he was simply convenient. Someone who could lift a couch, fix a stubborn drawer, patch a drywall seam without complaint. But convenience has a way of becoming something else when loneliness is waiting at the kitchen table. The first time I noticed him was ordinary. A tool passed across a counter, a hand that lingered an inch longer than necessary. He asked about my day with a softness I hadn't heard in years. He watched me, really watched, in a way that made me feel seen instead of merely observed. Those quiet attentions, tiny as they were, opened a fissure I'd forgotten I had. It was in the narrow hallway beside the laundry room that the world narrowed to the space between our bodies. The house was full of its usual noises, the refrigerator's low hum, the clock's gentle tick. Yet every sound seemed magnified, as if the house itself held its breath. Ethan reached for me to steady himself while we hauled a box, his fingers settling on my back with a tenderness that made heat rise to my face. I stepped closer instead of stepping back. I made no dramatic protest. There was no shouting, no cinematic confrontation, only choices made in a hush. We crossed the line with stolen proximity, an accidental touch that wasn't quite accidental, a whispered excuse that sounded like permission. His presence felt like an answer to a question I'd stopped asking myself. Mark slept on, unaware. Our daughter, Emily, lived in a different orbit of homework and friendship dramas. I carried the world for everyone else until one evening I found myself unable to carry the shape of my own truth. That night, in the dim light of the hallway, we let something happen that neither of us could easily name. It wasn't pornographic detail or a scene meant to titillate. It was about the way two people can collide and reveal unexpected parts of themselves. Ethan's hands on me were both urgent and careful, and I felt my resolve dissolving into something sharper and more complicated. Desire braided tightly with guilt. I gasped, not from shock alone, but from the intensity of suddenly being desired again, from the strange, shameful thrill of being noticed the way I used to be. Afterward, sleep did not come. I lay beside Mark and listened to his soft snore, watching the ceiling fan carve slow circles above us. The hallway replayed in my mind, the light on the linoleum, the damp scent of rain on someone's jacket, his breath against my neck. Each replay was a fresh wound and a small, illicit comfort. Guilt choked me. So did a frightened, fragile joy that startled me with its potency. For weeks, we moved like ghosts around one another. I tried to be stronger, scrubbing counters until my hands ached, reorganizing the pantry to leave no space for temptation. Ethan showed up more. He fixed things I hadn't noticed were broken. He left notes tucked into drawers, little scrawled lines that made my heart stutter when I found them. I'd tell myself to tear them up, and yet I would fold them open like paper talismans and read his handwriting until the words blurred. He was careful, never cruel. He apologized in whispers when he left my house, pressed a palm lightly to my shoulder, as if he could mend the damage we'd done. I shouldn't be here, he'd say, and the apology was both sincere and fatal. I told him to go. A part of me meant it. Another part of me didn't want him to leave. Then the moment that could no longer stay secret arrived in the most ordinary way. A scrap of paper retrieved from the trash by my daughter, Emily, who held it up like a found artifact and asked, "Who is this from, Mom?" The words on the edge of the crumpled note were unmistakable. Ethan's handwriting, a folded corner I'd failed to tear properly. Her eyes were open and uncomprehending, mine filled with a sudden, cold clarity. The house, the life we had been keeping together with gentle lies, threatened to unspool. I've thought a lot about why I let it proceed. There's no noble answer. Only the messy truths we make when we're tired and hungry for something that feels like being alive. Part of me wanted to punish myself with secrecy, to carry the weight like proof that I'm still human. Another part wanted to reclaim a piece of myself I feared had withered. What began as a fissure became a canyon. Every small touch, every lingering glance, widened the gap between devotion and desire. In the end, the affair was neither cinematic nor triumphant. It was a series of choices made in quiet rooms and crowded minds. It taught me that longing can be kind and cruel in the same breath. It taught me that the people we love and the people who love us are not always the same people we need in every season. I loved Mark in routines and safety. I wanted Ethan in moments that felt like being fluent in my own skin again. This is not a confession seeking absolution. It's a true story about how a woman who had promised herself she would never stray found herself at a crossroads she never expected to meet. If you felt the tug of forbidden desire, you know how quickly it can make a home out of the smallest of spaces. A hallway, a note, a look. The rest of the story, what I chose afterward, how we healed or didn't, is another chapter. For now, the memory of that night stays like an ember. Painfully warm, difficult to look at, and impossible to ignore. If this resonates with you, you're not alone, and maybe, in the quiet aftermath, you'll forgive yourself enough to ask why you needed what you did, and what you might do next.